What's going on, guys? Josh here, back again today, and this is a different type of video from what I normally make with my content, but I just want this to be a kind of a sit down, talk down opinion video talking about the NFL 2020 season. This is something that people don't want to talk about, as far as we know what's going on with the illness and players contracting it. There being outbreaks with some teams and just some players testing positive, a few players testing positive for others. It's obviously affected the season already, and I just want to kind of give my opinion on what I see happening, what's going to happen with the playoffs, what's going to happen with the regular season, and what's going to happen with the league as a whole. I think this is something that needs to be talked about, and I think people don't want to talk about it because it's just such a weird, tough situation to be in. So without further ado, let's jump into it. I hope you guys enjoy this video, as it is different. Let me know what you think about it in the comments, and give your opinions on, because this, like I said, this is an opinion video. I'm not saying that anything is 100% going to happen. I would love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. But anyway, let's talk about what's happening right now with the NFL season. 9 teams have been affected by the illness so far, either with players contracting it, staff contracting the illness, or their schedule and play week having to be pushed back or pushed around, or having to take their bye early. Teams like the Jets, the Chiefs, the Patriots, the Titans obviously have had their schedules affected, which kind of affects everything else. It affects getting planes, it affects hotels, it affects games for later on along in the season, it affects stadiums, it affects tickets. A game being postponed even a day has such a wide effect on the league as a whole. And the NFL, I will say, has done a pretty good job about being flexible. That was kind of their whole main goal this year. They knew that they wanted to play the season and have the season start. There was no way they were going to be able to have an NFL bubble set up by the time that the season started, even though they basically cut out the preseason. They were going to have the regular season schedule be the regular season. They're just going to be flexible with it. They knew players were going to get coronavirus. People were going to test positive, and there will be people contracting the virus, but they basically just said, hey, we'll deal with it when we have to deal with it. And I do have to applaud them so far. They've done a pretty good job, but it's only going to get tougher from here because teams are running out of bye weeks. Some teams have already had to use up their bye weeks because another team got the illness and then they couldn't play the game. And so now they're kind of just playing scheduled Jenga, trying to line up the blocks to kind of keep this building together. But with all these different variables and time eventually running out, it's going to crumble in some way, or crumble a little bit more than it already has. The goal of the NFL is to keep the regular season solid as much as possible. So let's talk about a few things with the NFL regular season that people have pitched so far. 1, cancel the season. This isn't happening. We are 5 weeks heading into 6 of the NFL season. They're not stopping this train. They were never going to stop this train. The only way I see personally that the NFL season is scrapped is if someone catches the virus and dies from it. An active player catches the virus and dies from it. Hopefully that does not happen. I'm not wishing that on anyone, but that is the only way I see the NFL season scrapping. Players that didn't want to play obviously sat out this year. There's too much money in this league. This is a $1 billion industry. Players want to play, coaches want to coach. NFL owners want to make their money and see their team succeed. There's no way that the season is being scrapped. So that brings up the next suggestion. Let's reduce the NFL schedule. This becomes more of a viable, logical answer and option because so many teams are running out of their buys. The only problem that I see with this is that really this year, I feel like that would have been the number one thing to start off the season. That's a good thought, but if that was going to be the case, that should have been done before the season started, in which you only play teams in your same division, but maybe you play them multiple times. I don't see this being an option, but if it does happen, I think it will happen around week 8, when teams have played most of the divisional games. I think you need at least 10 NFL games to have for the NFL to consider a season. And they will try to have the NFL games, all the divisional games for a certain team done. And then if you have a few more, then they will add those extra 2 games in those 2 to 4 games in to complete 10 that are either non-conference or non-divisional. They're probably keeping the same conference, obviously. So I would see at least 10, maybe 12 games if they were to cut the season short a little bit. With that being said, I don't see that happening. I think that the NFL is going to do their best, their darnest, to complete the NFL season with all 16 regular season games. What I do see happening is that the NFL season is just prolonged. We have a week 18, and there's a time and a set date for the NFL postseason to start, but that could just be pushed back. So using either a week 18, a week 19, a week 20, that is open weeks to have teams play. So eventually it could be a case this year where maybe every NFL team has 2 byes or 3 byes, just to keep everything fair for every team to have the same amount of byes in the NFL season. That is what I see potentially being the case, and something that I think the NFL will be capable of doing. COVID situation isn't great, but the good thing about COVID is that there's not many people traveling, so hotels are open, so teams can be really flexible with booking their hotels really easily. And also, most teams use charter planes, except for the Patriots. The Patriots have their own planes, but their own team plane. But with chartering planes, usually those have to be booked as well. But no one's really flying right now, especially charter planes. So it's really easy for teams to just go back and forth. And I see that still being the case when we get to the postseason. Now, with the postseason, it's very interesting because out of all the years, the league decided to add an extra 2 teams to the playoffs. So now there's 14 teams in the NFL postseason compared to 12. The 1 seed for each conference gets a bye, and the 2 seed now has to play during the wild card. So a potential option, again, would be to reduce the postseason. I don't see this happening because they just added another team to the postseason this year, which is really unfortunate because it would make a lot more sense to just have a reduced postseason. It would be much easier to set up an NFL bubble, which we'll talk about a little bit later. But I think they're going to continue because they set it up this year, which is terrible timing. But they set it up this year. I think they're going to continue to have it. They're going to have 14 teams in the NFL postseason. Now, if they take my advice and a lot of other people's advice, which is just to slowly extend the NFL season to play out all the games, make sure everyone has their same amount of byes, and just push back the postseason. With them pushing back the postseason, this also allows for them to set up an NFL bubble. The NFL bubble wasn't logistically possible for the NFL season. There's 32 teams, there's staff, extra personnel, practice squad, doctors. It was just a nightmare. It would have been a nightmare setup, especially with all the other leagues going on at the time. Those leagues being like the NBA and the WNBA. Well, the WNBA and NBA, the MLS, the NHL, all have been in bubbles, and bubbles have worked. So I see that the NFL transitioning to a bubble for the postseason for this year. The WNBA and the NBA are no longer in season, and the NHL is currently in its postseason right now. So that will free up a lot of space and a lot of opportunity to set up a NFL bubble this year. I see a bubble happening this postseason, and then it just same old. As players and teams, whether it's an outbreak or a single player or staff member catches the illness and tests positive, you can just push back the postseason games as needed. It'd be absolutely terrible if someone like a star quarterback, like maybe Patrick Mahomes, caught the illness, tested positive, but was in the AFC Championship. I wonder how that would go. I wonder if it would just be kind of like tough cookies, like when the Patriots, Cam Newton caught it earlier this season and he just couldn't play in the game. I wonder how the NFL will deal with that. I don't have any advice with that. That's just a really tough situation that they'll honestly probably just, chalk it up as tough luck. be safe as you can and deal with this thing as best as you can. But that's what I see happening. I see the NFL season being pushed back a little bit, not postponed, but being prolonged. I see the postseason being prolonged, and we might not see a Super Bowl until maybe mid or end of March of 2021. But as long as the season gets done and everyone stays safe, we'll just be as flexible as possible. So yeah, that's all I really have to say as far as regarding the NFL season. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. It was definitely different. I apologize for the lack of uploads, like I said. And also, I said, I think in my last video, that I would have something on this wall by now. I'm still getting stuff from my house. The room looks great, but not behind me. But it still looks good. Anyway, hope you guys enjoyed today's video. If you did, be sure to leave a like and let me know what you thought about it. Again, I would love your feedback. I'm signing out, and peace. Stay safe.